Hello, everybody. Well, unfortunately, today is Monday, and unfortunately, Dan and I have our Bible studies on Sunday nights. And last night, we went over Revelation 4 and 5. Long story short, I did something wrong, and I either never recorded it or I zapped the footage somehow. So I am going to read them again. And I'm going to try to include some of the discussion that him and I had. It's very difficult to recreate discussions that you're having on the fly, but I'll do my best. It's been very wonderful, and I thank you, Dan, for taking your time and your energy to speak with me about these things. And we have several conversations a day typically, and we don't record most of them, obviously. And it's unfortunate because we have some great we've had a couple great conversations today, and it's great for me, and hopefully it's great for him because we're able to work through a lot of these things going on. And both of us were inspired. We received a calling, for lack of a better word, to do, I mean, when you see what's going on in the country, I mean, what can you do, right? I mean, there's a lot of people hurting out there, a lot of people who can't see what's coming and what's going on. So I won't speak for Dan, but I'm pretty sure he feels the same way, that we both feel like watchers. And so we kind of feel like it's our duty to try to warn people, or at least share what we see. You know, I don't think you can wake somebody up or motivate somebody who doesn't want to be motivated. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And I'll just read chapters 4 and 5 of the book of Revelation, and then we'll pick it up from there. Okay, the book of Revelation, chapter 4, the throne in heaven. After this, I looked and saw a door standing open in heaven, and the voice I had previously heard speak to me like a trumpet was saying, "Come up here, and I will show you what must happen after these things." At once I was in the Spirit, and I saw a throne standing in heaven, with someone seated on it. The one seated there looked like jasper and carnelian, and a rainbow that gleamed like an emerald encircled the throne. Surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and on those thrones sat 24 elders dressed in white, with golden crowns on their heads. Worship of the Creator. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder. Before the throne burned 7 torches of fire. These are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne was something like a sea of glass, as clear as crystal. In the center, around the throne, were 4 living creatures, covered with eyes in front and back. The first living creature was like a lion, the second like a calf. The third had a face like a man, and the fourth was like an eagle in flight. And each of the 4 living creatures had 6 wings, and was covered with eyes all around and within. Day and night they never stopped saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." And whenever the living creatures give glory, honor, and thanks to the one seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before the one seated on the throne, and they worship him, who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, "You are worthy, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things. By your will they exist and came to be." So we don't have the commentary between Dan and I on this, unfortunately. Instead, I will go to Revelation chapter 4, the interpretation. First, I'll read the book summary to the right here. The word revelation means an unveiling or disclosure. This writing unveils future events such as the rapture, 3 series of judgments that will fall on the earth during the tribulation, the emergency of the Antichrist, the persecution of Israel and her amazing revival, as well as Jesus' second coming with his saints to the earth, the judgment of Satan and his followers, and finally the eternal state. This content, combined with the original Greek term apocalypsis, is why we now refer to an end-of-the-world scenario as an apocalypse. What does Revelation chapter 4 mean? Chapter 4 is brief, but it sets the stage for much of the rest of Revelation. It also makes the transition from John's description of things which are or were at the time he wrote to those things which are yet to happen. Again, at least at the time he wrote. Among the interesting properties of this passage is that the word church no longer appears in Revelation until the very end, when it is only used to repeat that the churches should take the message seriously. This absence of references to the church support the view that those who are believers will be taken in the rapture and not subject to the tribulation. This passage opens with John referring again to the voice which sounded like a trumpet. This voice was first mentioned in Revelation 1, verse 10 and 11, and later identified as Jesus. Here the voice calls John up here, which seems to mean to heaven, and shows him events which will happen in the future. In Revelation book 4, verse 1 and 2. Next, John sees a vision in the Spirit. He sees 24 thrones, each with an elder dressed in white, surrounding the throne of God. The 24 elders on the thrones may symbolize the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel plus the 12 apostles. John describes the throne in terms of gemstones, which are associated with certain symbolic ideas. There is also a sea of glass and 4 fantastic creatures. Revelation 4, verse 3 through 6. John describes these creatures as animals. Some commentators have suggested that each of these animals embodies traits parallel to the depiction of Jesus in one of the 4 Gospels. These creatures seem to constantly praise God. In response to their praise, the 24 elders fall in worship, casting their crowns down before God. That was Revelation 4, verse 7 through 11. So this chapter context. Chapter 3 concluded the description of the things that are in Revelation 1, verse 19. Chapter 4 begins the final section of Revelation regarding the things that are to take place after this, from Revelation 1, verse 19. Chapter 1 describes the appearance of Jesus to John on the island of Patmos, at which time he commanded John to write to 7 churches in Asia Minor. Chapters 2 and 3 provide us with the contents of Jesus' letters, whereas chapters 1 through 3 relate events on earth. Chapters 4 and 5 describe what John saw in heaven. Because the word church does not appear in this, after this section of Revelation, we may assume the church does not experience the judgments described in chapters 6 and beyond. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 5. The Lamb takes the scroll. Then I saw a scroll in the right hand of the one seated on the throne. It had writing on both sides and was sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or look inside it. And I began to weep bitterly, because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or look inside it. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed to open the scroll and its 7 seals." Then I saw a lamb who appeared to have been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which represent the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. And he came and took the scroll from the right hand of the one seated on the throne. When he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. "Worthy are you to take the scroll and open its seals, because you were slain, and by your blood you purchased for God those from every tribe and tongue and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign upon the earth." The Lamb exalted. Then I looked, and I heard the voices of many angels and living creatures and elders encircling the throne, and their number was myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands. In a loud voice they were saying, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power and riches, and wisdom and strength, and honor and glory and blessing." And I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever." And the 4 living creatures said, "Amen." And the elders fell down and worshipped. Chapter context. Jesus commanded John to write the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are about to take place after this. The first 3 chapters of Revelation contain those things which were and are at the time John wrote. Chapters 2 and 3 provided the contents of Jesus' letters to 7 churches. Chapter 4 begins the largest and last section of Revelation regarding events yet to take place when John wrote in Revelation 1, verse 19. John introduced God seated upon his throne with 24 elders and 4 angelic creatures nearby. Chapter 5 focuses on a scroll containing God's judgment on sin and a search for someone to open it. Only Jesus is worthy to open it. When Jesus receives the scroll from God, he receives praise from every creature in heaven and on earth. What does Revelation chapter 5 mean? In this chapter, John describes a scene of drama and praise in heaven. Chapter 4 set a scene around the throne of God, where there are 24 elders and 4 animal-like beings, from Revelation 4, verse 1 through 7. Chapter 5 begins by describing a scroll in the right hand of God. This scroll is sealed 7 times over and written on both sides. This scroll seems to symbolize the judgment of God on sin and wickedness. That was in Revelation 5, verse 1 through 2. An angel proclaims a question, making it more of a challenge. Who is worthy to take this scroll and open the seals? At first, it seems there is no one. Nobody on heaven or earth has both the moral authority and the legal right to take up the judgment of God. In response to what seems a hopeless situation, John begins to weep. from Revelation book 5, verse 2 through 4. Then one of the 24 elders reassures John that there is one who can take this scroll, Jesus. Here, he is described as the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Root of David. John then describes Jesus symbolically as a lamb that has been slaughtered, who takes the scroll from the hand of God. In response to this, the beings described in chapter 4 begin to sing a new song to God. Revelation 5, verse 5 through 10. This passage ends with a series of praises and responses. The 24 elders and the 4 living creatures sing a song praising Jesus for his worthiness to enact God's judgment. In response, a mind-boggling number of angels respond by praising Jesus. This praise is then echoed by every creature in creation, in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them. Revelation 5, verse 9 through 14. After seeing Jesus take the scroll, John will begin to describe the judgments which follow. These sealed judgments will be described specifically in Revelation chapters 6 through 8. The 7th seal includes the judgments contained in the 7 trumpet judgments, which begin in chapter 8. In our discussion, I had asked Dan, and I have part of the discussion that was recovered, but it doesn't talk about this, I don't think. I had asked Dan, I said, what one word would you use to describe what we just read? And I went first. And I used the word arrogance. And I don't have the section of Revelation here that inspired that. But we talked about how men on earth, specifically our politicians, are arrogant enough to believe that they have all the answers. Instead of, during times like these, they should be falling on their knees like those elders and praising the Lord and asking for his guidance and assistance. Instead, they think they are gods, they think they are kings, and they think they have the right to tell all of us what we are going to do. So Dan's word was facade. And it's similar in some ways from the standpoint that he believes that what's going on in our world today is artificial. He believes that what our governments and what all of us in social media put out there is fake. It's a veneer. It's what we want the world to believe, but it's not who we really are. And we got into a discussion about how difficult it is sometimes to recognize what's going on, number one, but then number two, to take the action that's required, to have the conviction of our beliefs to take that action. So I tried to break it down in the following. So I got out my calculator and I said to Dan, I said, Dan, if you live 80 years, you will have lived 700,000, almost 701,000 hours, which are 42 million minutes, which are 2.5 billion seconds. It's mind-boggling when you start thinking about 2.5 billion. How little time we have. It starts to get you thinking about what really matters. Because if you are 40 years old, you don't have 2.5 trillion or 2.5 billion seconds anymore. You have half of that. And I told Dan about a story about a father who gave his son a present for his birthday, and it was a container, glass container, and it had marbles, but you could use candies or gum or whatever you like. But he gave his son marbles. And he instructed his son, take out one marble the same time every day, at the end of every day, the beginning of every day, but preferably when you get home from work. And his son's like, didn't put it together, but he finally figured it out, that represented the end of the day, and you pull a marble out, and inside were how many days, if you live a normal life, you would have left on earth, to reinforce that we are here temporarily. Hopefully, we end up in heaven. Hopefully, we will be doing the right things and taking the right actions here to earn our place in heaven. So this was chapters 4 and 5 of the book of Revelation. And next week, I will do my best not to destroy the fantastic conversations, because Dan has some excellent insights. And I hope everybody finds it entertaining, at the very least, the conversations between Dan and I. He's obviously a very good friend of mine, and so we can speak freely with each other. But hopefully, beyond entertainment, hopefully it has some value, and hopefully it gets people thinking about these things. And if you have thoughts or ideas, please add it to the comments. Hopefully we can have discussions on this. And Dan and I clearly do not know everything. And that's one reason why we're doing this, is we're using it as our attempt at trying to figure out what's going on in this world. And we're using it as time to study the Bible and utilize the Bible to live better lives. And we're just trying to share that with all of you as well. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Yeah, but again, real quick on your premise, excuse me, we laugh in this country, to your point about that stuff, right? Like, oh, they're backwards or whatever. They're not backwards. They're more self-sufficient, okay? So, you know, maybe they're not quite first world in terms of the technology and stuff, but my concern is, you know, technology, it balances on a thread. I mean, take the electricity away, you're done. No internet, nothing, right? No central air if you have that in your house. No stove if it's electric, etc. Right?
Yeah.
We really, modern man balances on the on a shoelace in a lot of ways, to your point. And we've lost a lot of these skills. Like I said, up until my father's generation, or up until our generation, X, boys were taught all the time by their father, all the time, to hunt and fish. That was commonplace. Even in states like Massachusetts, you know, they'd go hunting, rifles, shotguns, whatever. Now that's like taboo. Oh, you like firearms? I got people in my family that are like that. Oh, you like firearms? You're an NRA supporter? What do we need the Second Amendment for?
Well, I don't think supermarkets were as industrialized and as mechanized as they are today. Today, it's big business.
100%, yeah.
Everything is a production floor.
Big time, and it's just in time too.
All processed.
Yeah, and it's all just in time inventory principles and stuff like that. All of it. The supermarket, every 2.5 days, the trucks better be coming with certain stuff, or else the shelves are going to go blank in like 3 days. Literally blank. It's
Yeah,
all
they didn't use a lot of preservatives back then, so
nope. Yep. Yeah. I mean, you've got stuff.
they didn't have the freezer technology. Like a lot of the fruit that comes in, they freeze the stuff or get it extremely cold so that it can go 3 days in a car, in a railroad car or a truck,
Yeah.
without going bad. And that's why a lot of the fruit you get and vegetables, it's like just turning, you know?
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way, and I got to go in a couple of minutes, but
Yeah.
when we were kids, you remember when you were a kid, you dropped candy on the ground once in a while, eating juju beads or whatever, which was real sugar. It wasn't artificial chemicals and stuff. Even the candy we used to eat, at least it was natural. It was like real sugar and stuff like that, right? And I remember if you dropped like something on the ground, a piece of candy you were eating, what would happen? Like particularly in the summer, within seconds, 1,000,000 ants would come out, right, and start eating the piece of candy. You don't see that anymore. Like if you do that with a modern day piece of food or candy and see how long it takes sometimes for the bugs to come out and start eating it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you give like something to an animal and an animal won't eat it. It's not.
Yeah, what does that say? Even the wild beast knows something's wrong with that food. I'm not going to eat that. No, they don't have a degree, a master's degree in chemical engineering, but for some reason, their instincts, they know I'm not going to eat that food. What is this? I can't eat this. A wild beast or a bug knows this, but yet we're eating this stuff every day on our tables, and we're feeding it to our families.
Well, think about it, Dan. You go to McDonald's, you eat the hamburger. You're assuming that's food,
right? Yeah.
But it's not.
Well, it is, but the source.
It's not natural food.
Well, we could debate what the source is. I mean, it's not Beyond Meat just yet. I don't think Bill Gates' company or whatever. That's another thing. Vaccine man over here not only wants to pump vaccines into us forever going into the future, but he wants to get rid of real meat. Right? The powers that be want to get rid of real freaking meat and start making us eat meat that they're preparing in labs, literally. Man preparing meat in labs. Synthesized artificial meat.
Soylent Green.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not funny. I mean, God knows.
It's people!
Well, I know what you're referencing, but for a lot of folks maybe that might watch this, they're not going to know what you mean by Soylent Green. So it's an old Charlton Heston. It's an old Charlton Heston movie, guys. Look it up. Soylent, Soylent, I believe. Soylent Green, made in 1971 or 2 or something. An old Charlton Heston movie. For you millennials, you don't even know who he is, but he was an old famous American actor. The Gen X and the baby boomers will know who he is. But look it up and you'll know what Dave's referencing.
Well, Dan, would you say it's worth watching?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was well done. And if you watch it right now, you'll see some parallels in it that you could argue that are kind of streaming into our reality right now. That movie was 50 years ahead of its time, and it was set in the year 2020, right? It was made in like 1970, and it was set in 2020.
2020, New York City.
How weird is that? 2020, New York City.
But they had a population, I think, of 50 million for New York City.
I thought they said 25 million or something in the movie.
25 million? Oh,
your memory's better than mine. You're probably right. Maybe it was 30 million or something. I don't know. It was much bigger than it is now.
right.
20, 30, 40 million, some ungodly number. Can you imagine 30 million people in New York City and the surrounding area? Triple the pop. I mean, you want to talk about people on top of each other, right?
Well, anybody who actually was in New York City in the 70s will know how much of a beep hole it was. And that's really was the setting back then.
Well, look, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to insult anybody, but a lot of staunch, hardcore New Yorkers would take offense to that, Dave.
Well, I don't think they would. I think they'd agree, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, you're from the tri-state area, so
Yeah.
you can
Well,
speak.
I was there, so I know what it's.
You're a tri-state guy. I'm a Boston boy, so.
Listen, a pig is a pig. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could put lipstick on it, like you said, and eyeshadow and stuff, but it's still a pig.
And then, they remember Escape from New York.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these movies, I mean, it's fascinating.
They just wrote New York off back then. Let's make it a prison colony.
Yeah. Now everybody wants to get out of it. All the major cities, everybody wants to get out of COVID's causing this. It's just, who would have thought, right? What is it? Real life mirrors fiction, right? That saying.
What they say.
That's what. Yeah, you're seeing it now. Everybody wants to get out of the cities now. They want their own space.
Yeah.
What? What?
That's the whole thing with the Satanists, how they use movies and television and to forecast their plans.
Well, not only forecast, but for some reason, Satan and the devil and stuff, they have this crazy. Actually, it's not crazy, but it's really a credo.
Yeah, they have to forewarn you.
Yeah, which is exactly. Yeah, Satan will forewarn you. He will tell you what he's going to do, and you either believe.
It's like.
And you either believe it or you don't. But let me tell you guys, if evil's telling you what it's going to do, you heed it and you take it seriously, because it will do what it tells you.
Yeah,
or try to.
If they want to hurt you, you don't laugh it off.
No, it's not to be. Yeah. If Satan, absolutely. When he says something, if you get a message in some way, shape, or form, it's not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, and the other one is, and then we watched the other movie, which was Capricorn One.
Right. That was fascinating.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're different movies, obviously. But both of them,
right.
Both of them really forecast that,
what's possible, what could be done, how the public can be duped. Capricorn One.
That's the common denominator right there. Is that
they were making that's a great movie to watch too. Again, in the 70s, guys. If for those of you that's never seen it, and what the underlying idea, what it gets across is what I just said, that the possibilities of how governments can dupe their people. It happens all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Movies, what both these movies are saying is the story that you are told, as you were saying before, facade, Dan.
Yeah, that was my operative word.
The facade is never the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. It's the viewing, it's the veiling, it's the painting that they want you to see, but it's not the real thing. Or it's maybe you could say another way, it's a distraction. The left hand, they got you looking at the left hand, but there's a whole bunch of stuff going on over here, but you're focused looking this way, and it's all behind your head, but behind your back.
And if you actually look behind that curtain, then you will find that you have been lied to your whole life. But I don't know why people in our country are, like what Richie was saying today in one of those videos you sent me. He said, I don't remember exact words, but everybody's under a spell. And he goes, I don't know what's going on, but nobody's waking up.
Well,
nobody's waking up.
You know what's interesting? Here's the thing. Now, I don't want to sound like a child, this secret spell, but and I don't want to freak people out and stuff, but the reality is there is a spiritual component to this world that's beyond the eyes and beyond the flesh, a spiritual component. And there is literally a battle between good and evil. And there are people in this world that cast spells. There are witches. They do exist. There's good witches, and there's witches that are not good. and that cast spells.
Yeah, and some people can see them and some people can't.
We all have gifts. The Bible talks about that each person, there's 7 or 8 types of gifts, and I forget which book and which passage, but some people have the gift of prophecy. Some people have the gift of teaching. Some people have the gift of like intuition. And there's like 3 or 4 other gifts. We all have 1 or 2 of those gifts, right? So like Daniel is a great one in the book of Daniel. He was, he could prophesize the future. God gifted him that way to tell the people at the time what was going to happen in the future and stuff. Now I don't have that ability. You said you're poor with symbolism, but you have other gifts, obviously. But there's people, Dave, that could zip through the book of Revelation in terms of the symbolism and be articulated to you like that. I don't have that ability either. So we all have different abilities, but there are people that cast spells. Even the president talked about it a couple of times in the last year or so. He even referred to the word spell. This nation is under a bad spell and something to that effect. Trump, you can find the footage on it. I'm not crazy. So this is why, people, it's important, to Dave's point, that you got to get right with God, especially with what's going down now. And a big point is coming up. Come September 18th through the 28th, there's going to be a 10-day, I forget what it refers to, but Bo, what's-his-face, talked about it today, Dave.
Oh, bowling, yeah.
Yeah, about...
we have storms coming up around then.
Yeah, that's the time when people got to start praying and really getting right with God. Especially September's supposed to be a very tumultuous month in more ways than one, not just financial market-wise, but a lot of ways. And then especially with the election coming up.
Well, I will say this. In 2008, 2007, whenever the financial thing started, I mean, I knew what was going on, but I was not affected by it at all, really.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I was lucky.
This year, I would say almost everybody notices what's going on this year.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Down economies.
I agree. It's affecting the whole world. How can you not notice? And unless you're really the elite, a multi-billionaire or a Bezos or whatever, then you don't care. It's not going to affect him. But the bulk of the planet is taking notice and being affected. You can't help. I mean, with all these economies being shut down and stuff, it's like, I don't want to be critical. It's easy to be critical. But, what are our leaders thinking? I mean, what are they thinking? I mean, how much more can we endure, guys? I mean, we've had millions of, like 50 million businesses, small businesses already, have shut down in the U.S. for good. Millions of businesses. And then we've got 50 million people in just 3 months unemployed. You've got about 150 million workforce out of 300 million that comprise the workforce, right? Not including, senior citizens, children, whatever, right? 150 million, right? Of which 50 million have been laid off in the last 3 or 4 months. That's 33%, but they're telling us 10% unemployment. So I guess I'm a moron, but 50 divided by 150 is 33, not 10. So I don't even understand where these numbers come from, right? On one hand, they tell us 50 million with a 10% unemployment rate. How do you figure? We got 500 million workforce? I don't think so.
It doesn't matter anyways because everybody's getting more money than they were making when they were working.
Yeah, but there's a cost to that, and this is why financial education is extremely lax in this country. That's by design. Most people don't even understand interest rates and what APR is on their credit card, right? And they don't understand that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not Al Greenspan either, but, it's basic supply and demand, laws of supply and demand.
None of those people believe there's going to be a cost.
Okay, fine. Then what? Okay. I guess not. So MMT, right? What is it? Modern monetary theory? Is that what it's called?
That's what that's called, yes.
Yeah. Is that what the knuckleheads are teaching in college these days to the economic students, MMT?
I don't think so.
Well, where's MMT come from? We should look up that paper because under the
it's been around for 100 years or longer.
Has it been around that long?
Yeah.
Well, the governments are practicing it, including ours, right? They basically believe you can print as much.
I think the woman who is the recognized spokesman for it now is Stephanie Kelton.
Okay, great.
Was Bernie Sanders' main person.
But basically, the premise is you can print as much money as you want, and there's no ramifications, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to. There's more technical stuff to it than that, but essentially, under MMT, the theory is you can print as much money as you want.
Yeah, there are specific rules. I just don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't either. But essentially, it boils down to don't worry about keep printing the money. There's no ramifications. Okay. All right. Well, there wasn't a Weimar Republic. There wasn't Venezuela, which was a very wealthy country up until the 90s. There wasn't a Zimbabwe, etc., right? None of that shit went down. So we can escape it, I guess, because we're got a special system. I don't know.
Well, the difference was we're going to go way off the reservation.
Yeah, I don't want to go way off the That's enough. I'm sorry. You know, the dollar is different. I get that. That's true. We're a world reserve currency. It's strong comparatively speaking.
Yeah, because we don't have foreign debt we have to pay back in their currency. You know, when you're the U.S. dollar, you can just print off as many U.S. dollars as you want, and that's what MMT is saying. There is no limit because you have a printing press.
Right. Okay, so maybe they're right.
We'll see. Trillion? No problem.
Yeah.
Those memes of Paul going.
Yeah, exactly.
Going,
you know, when he's like this with the $1.
Yeah, he's like
in perpetuity. By the way, well, he's got like a machine gun that's bopping out the bills, or in perpetuity, right? You know, forever, right?
Well, I mean, you've seen those things where like a trillion is like a million times a million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would take you, like if you tried to count to a trillion, if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, it would take you like 240 years to count.
Oh, would it take that long? Wow.
Something like that. So longer than we're alive.
Imagine that. You can't even count to a trillion. That's how big the number is. It's a big-ass number.
Yep. Well, think about Daisy alive. If you live 80 years, right?
Yeah.
80 years times 365 days, we're talking what, 25,000 days?
80 years times 365 is 29,200. Right? Yeah, 29,000 days.
So that's
pretty finite.
29,200. So if we're talking times hours, right? Now we're talking 700,000 hours. Now if we talk minutes, that's only 42 million. If we live 80 years, well, it's only 42 million minutes.
Wow.
Now if we talk 6 seconds, 2.5 billion seconds.
Wow. 2.5 billion is 2.5% of a trillion, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Only 2%, 2.5%. It's mind-boggling.
Well,
it's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling because none of us can wrap our brains around that. So when they say they can repay that, I don't think people realize they can't.
Well, then let me put it in this context too. Up until February of this year, it was around, we were what, 22 trillion, 23 trillion? It's now like 28 trillion. So since February, we've printed off 5 or 6 trillion in just 5 months.
And let me re-say that they can print it. They can repay it if they want because they have the printing press. So you have to wonder, why are they taking it on as debt?
Well, because they're obviously not worried about it because they have other means to pay that off, maybe through hyperinflation next.
No, why not just, there's no need to just do debt. Congress could just say, okay, we're just going to pay it out as money. Just print the money. There's no debt. Just create it.
Okay. So what does that mean for the average guy that has a mortgage and a car loan and a school loan?
Well, according to those people, it means nothing.
Oh, okay. So I have a mortgage. I don't have to make payments anymore, or what? I mean,
Well, no, because you're not in the club.
my bad. How silly of me. I'm naive.
No, you see, that's part of the facade.
Goes back to my operative
You're
word,
on,
facade.
you're on that side.
Hmm.
Sir, please stay on that side of the
Yes.
line. Okay.
You're not worthy, sir.
Put your
You're-
mask on.
You are a serf and a plebeian, or a plebe. Please stand over there, plebe.
That's it. At least you know where you stand.
By the way, stand 6 feet away.
Yeah, I like that that video you sent of Dollar Vigilante. I thought it was very clever that he pointed out the 666. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't.
He showed the symbol where it said it had the three spaces of where you stand, and it had arrows between them, and it said 6 feet apart.
Yep.
So it said 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. So six,
Yep.
6.
Yep.
And people think that this is by accident.
No, it's not. This is all by design. Yeah, no, it is. There is no coincidence, folks. I'm just telling you. It sounds crazy, but if
Well,
you
when it
stand
comes to-
back,
I mean, that is somebody laughing at you, is what it is.
it is.
They just fulfilled their obligation to tell you that they're taking you to hell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they put their mark on it.
Yes.
And they're like, but these people are never going to believe it.
Yep.
They only have that in movies and in fairy tales.
Exactly. Well, yeah. All you got to do is look at history over the millennium and all the evil ways man has devised things and done stuff to his fellow man. Why should that change now? There's nothing new under the sun, as the book Ecclesiastes talks about. There's nothing new under the sun.
But Jesus really didn't die for us. He really didn't get sacrificed to protect us from these things.
Well,
These really don't exist. Yeah, there's bad people in the world. But
yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely, there's bad people and evil in the world. And then that's the typical childish response and question is, well, if there is badness and evil in the world, why doesn't God do anything about it, right? Well, because, guys, it's one word. It's called choice. He gave us the planet about
free will.
To run, essentially, 6,000 years ago, at least in human terms,
It's up to us. We've been asleep at the switch. The founding fathers warned us what was going to happen if we fell asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a joke now. Don't even go to the Constitution. There's a few of us who take it serious, but the bulk of people, and I believe the bulk of our politicians, don't take our Constitution seriously. They don't even think about it. They don't even reference it.
It says George Carlin said,
They don't
"You
even
don't have
reference it.
rights because rights can't be rescinded. When they can be rescinded, they're called privileges." So if you read the Constitution, what the government is doing today is illegal. It's not allowed. They don't have the authority to say, well, I know there's a Constitution, but because I'm declaring that there's an emergency, COVID-19! Did you notice the Hitler guy today?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
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 Okay. So just because they say, COVID-19, you must do what I tell you. No, I don't. And it's up to us to say, no. I mean, that's why Thomas Jefferson wrote the Tree of Liberty. It must be watered by the blood of tyrants and patriots every so often.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, the founding fathers, the way they wrote it out painstakingly, took the time, and deliberately the way they forged the words, was for a reason. Now, were they perfect? No, they were fallible men as well. So maybe that's why the Constitution's considered a joke now. I mean, look at what's going on around the country. They're ripping down statues everywhere. They're trying to erase our history. Some of them were slave owners. Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were imperfect men. I don't condone that either. Absolutely. But
are we all.
It took us time to right that wrong. No
As
doubt.
are we all.
No doubt. No doubt. It took us time.
So I don't want to make a bet, but I am willing to wager a penny or two that if we put our lives up against theirs, I'm sure that we'd find some doozies in our own lives of sins and mistakes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go there. I'm a believer, but I'm also
that term about glass houses, I'm sure there's something in the Bible about that too. Don't cast a stone.
Well, Jesus says, I think in the book of Matthew,
they were going to stone that woman, remember?
Yeah, and he said something to the effect, before you judge somebody else, take the log out of your own eye, or something like that.
Yeah, the thorn. Yeah.
No, I think the term was log. He was telling, hey, dude, there's something in your eye.
To the effect, he who cast the stone, basically that's where that whole term about glass houses comes in.
Yeah. And then there was another, yeah. No, you're right. And there was another part too where they were going to stone an adulteress, right? And then Christ said to the mob, because the whole mob was screaming and yelling, stone her to death, stone her to death. And what did he say? Let he who has never sinned, or something to that effect, cast the first stone. And they all just walked away, dropped the stones, and walked off, because they knew that's how brilliantly simple he was.
Well, today they'd kill you.
In profound.
Today they'd still stone you. Somebody would still stone you today. Because there's plenty of people who think that they're sin-free today, that they're perfect. And I would think that there's lots of people who think that they're above God today.
I hope not. But
These governors, these politicians, they think they're gods.
Well, you look at some of history, what's gone on when communism has taken over in certain countries. I mean, the first thing they do is they take all the Bibles, and make a pile in the middle of the town square and burn them all. Now, why do they do that? That's both symbolic and literal, to say, that's not your God. Your God's over here. I'm taking care of you. And the minute man says that to you folks, you better be scared.
Just from this conversation about Revelations, we now know that the arrogance of the people in charge they don't believe in the Bible or in God, or they would not be taking the actions that they're taking right now. They would get down on their knees and they would ask for forgiveness.
Well, the founding fathers did it. George Washington was, for example, and this is recorded through secular historians, as well, was on his knees all the time praying, all the time. So.
And it's not too late if anybody from the government hears this, or anybody who has influence, and the people themselves is. And if you have bad legs, you don't necessarily have to get on your knees, but repent.
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with asking God, letting him know you have no idea what's going on, that you need his guidance, that you are sorry for your misdeeds, and that you want to be better.
Yeah.
Would you enhance that anyway, Dan? I mean...
No. No, it's a matter of humbling yourself, yeah.
And the politicians, just because, and listen, I've been in charge of people, lots of people, And there's a lot of pressure to be perfect and to do the right thing because you're responsible for people. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the best leaders know that they're not going to be right all the time. And when you make a mistake, you correct your course.
Yes. And you also surround yourself with good people as well that are equal, but ideally the best leaders surround themselves with people that are even better than them in a lot of areas.
But that's not
Because,
always possible.
well, no, but the point is a good leader is also a humble leader. That's important.
Well,
And you got to ask,
you don't have all the answers.
you got to ask yourself, do we have leaders for the most part that are humble? That's important. We did at one point.
Would anybody think any of those people are humble? Do you think Trump has that capability?
I think I would have said before he was in office, no. I think he's starting, believe it or not, slowly, very slowly to learn it. I do. Because of the magnitude and the weight that's on his shoulders and stuff and what it's going to take to continue to right this ship. I think he's starting to pray a lot, if you want my opinion. I know I would be if I was in his shoes. And
Well,
we need to.
I mean, would it? I don't know. I would take it as a breath of fresh air if he came out and said, "Okay, guys, I know I've been saying this is the greatest economy ever. I know I've been saying that, the stock market is everything. I know I've been saying that the unemployment rate is low, but I kind of lied because I didn't want to scare you." And
Well, that's never going to happen. Let's be realistic.
but that comes down to humility, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, he can still express humility different ways.
I don't see him as ever being humble. I don't think we have a solution in the people who are in charge right now. And that's why I think it's more important than ever for people to take charge of their own lives.
Yeah, I don't think I could debate that. Whether we have the wherewithal as a whole is a different story, though. Because I know there's a good amount or factions thereof that don't have the wherewithal, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong.
Wherewithal to do what?
Stand on their own 2 feet, pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, whatever.
Dan, in many ways, you and I aren't even capable of that.
Yeah, there's truth to that, too.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if this system ever did fall apart, woo-wee.
No, I agree.
Wow. I mean, I don't have the tools needed to survive.
No, I hear you. I'm not Davy Crockett either. I know.
I mean, I don't have a house anymore. I don't have all my equipment. Plus, I'm not in a New York City, but I'm in a city, right? So I'm in a
Urban area.
All right, pal. Well, happy Sunday.
Likewise. Thanks so much. Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Good. Bye.